Okay, core location types. There's three key classes. There's the manager, there's location, and there's a heading. There's a protocol. Some class has to be the delegate to the location manager to receive information, in my case, the view controller. And there's an enum that tells you the authorization, denied, so on and so forth. Let's start looking at the code.
Okay, let's take a look at some code. First thing you're going to need to do is import CoreLocation. Now keep in mind that CoreLocation requires a delegate to report information. In this case, the view controller is going to be my delegate, so I have to conform to a protocol, CoreLocation Manager delegate. Now there's a bunch of user interface stuff, and there's an instantiation of a CoreLocation Manager. Now I define two constants for basically the segmented control for magnetic and true, set 0 and 1. And basically, there's a bunch of user interface stuff here. What I do is I clear out the display of the degrees and the heading, and that's not really of great interest. Now view did appear. I do work here because I want to make sure the view is in the view hierarchy, because potentially I'm going to be displaying an alert, and if it's not in the view hierarchy, it's not possible to do that. In that function, I end up calling setup, so I don't do a bunch of work in view did appear. Now here, I want to know whether location services is turned on or off. If it is turned off, I want to set up an alert. Now I have a function called display alert that does the work for that, and all I have to do is provide a message. And there is a bool as the last argument that indicates whether the setting button is shown or not. Now else, what I do is I set up the delegate. I say I am the delegate for Location Manager, and if the authorization is not determined, then the application has been first installed, and I'm going to request a certain type of authorization. I'm requesting always authorization. That's not really necessary. I could just say in use because I don't run in background, but this is what I'm doing at this point in time. There is a protocol function defined which the location manager ends up reporting the authorization status. The location manager operates asynchronously, so this thing just sort of comes in. So you got to be a little careful when you define the delegate. I get the authorization, and all I'm really testing is I'm testing to make sure it's not denied. If it isn't denied, I end up doing some setup things here. I set up for the accuracy that I want, and I end up starting the updates for location, and I end up starting the locations for the headings. Else, I want to display another alert. In other words, I don't have the appropriate authorization. In this case, I do want to have the settings application button. Display alert. This thing is somewhat complex. I ended up creating an alert object, and if I'm requiring a settings button, I end up adding a basically an action. I'm adding an action, which means a button plus some work to do. Okay, and these take an enclosure. In other words, what am I going to do if I get this? In this case, I'm going to call a function called self, open settings. All right. Now I'm always going to provide an OK button. And in the case of the OK button, I'm going to exit when that's completed. So that's what that enclosure does. Now you have to present. I've set up the alert and I'm telling the view controller, actually the super, this is an inherited function that isn't overridden, present. It's invoked and that actually presents the alert. Now, open settings, I'm not going to go into this too deeply because this is rather obscure, and in iOS 10 it's pretty undocumented. Okay, but this notion of going to the UI application class, saying this notion is shared, and open something based on a URL. And there's this URL string defined which ends up opening settings. And then you have a enclosure, the operation. Now in this case I'm doing an exit. If I do the exit up in the if I do the exit when I define the action in the alert, the application ends up going away before this thing responds. So it's actually trying to do an exit on an application that's no longer running, which causes a problem. It took a while for me to figure that out. We're going to stop here, and we're going to go to the next slide and talk about receiving the location information. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the location portion of the code and then defer the heading portion to the next video. And this is so I don't have the risk of exceeding the 15-minute maximum on YouTube videos. There's a protocol function that's invoked whenever new location information is available. What is provided is an array of CL location objects because the reports may get bunched up. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing the last one in the array. That's the most recent, so that's why we have count -1. Now I have a function called coordinate string, okay, and I just give it the location. What it turns back is a tuple, and the tuple has two strings. It's got the latitude and longitude string, and I turn around and I provide those to the two labels which are displayed. Now also there's the accuracy, and I get that from the location manager by asking for horizontal accuracy, and I follow that string, which I end up creating with the string function here, plus m for meters. Now what I'm not doing is, if this number comes back negative, there's no coordinate information. All right, now I should really be obtaining it and testing that. However, I did try to cause the iPhone not to see GPS satellites by aluminum foil and covering up. It was unsuccessful. So I'm given this as demo code, I'm not really bothering with that test. Now the coordinate string, what I want to do is I want to extract out the latitude and longitude, and I want to determine whether we're positive and negative in those cases. So I want to know whether I want an N or an S or an E or W. At that point, I only need the absolute value of these because I've already extracted out the negative and positive situation. I want to obtain the integer part of these numbers, and that's because that would end up being the degrees. And I want to deal with the decimal portion. And I actually want to end up multiplying those by 60 because I'm really talking about minutes here. I have a format string, and I end up creating the two strings that I end up wanting to return, and then I return the tuple that I'm requiring. We'll wrap up here. We'll go to the next video and we'll talk about headings.